So people always say, okay, we can do everything we want, we can try everything, we have a lot of courage and everything, but China is too big, China is too strong, China is too powerful, China is there, China is that. What do you say?
There is a huge misconception around the world looking at China as just this monolithic military, economic, political power, that everybody is buying, up to China. They are getting played into Chinese politics. But if you actually look at it very carefully and that too closely, China is not that monolithic power. Look at China, for example. Much of it is created out of economic investments from the West. And look at the politics. The Communist political party, which Mao Zedong led, is no longer the same. And then look at the power holders. Some of the most important leaders have already stashed out money and created their own personal wealth empires in the West. And look at the people, common people of China. They are the ones who are having to pay. Their backs are broken and they have been taken advantage. Their silence, their oppression had been taken advantage and being sold to the Western corporate companies. China, if we actually look at very closely, is not the monolithic power which the economic and the commercial world is making China into. And therefore, when we actually look at, as a small 6 million Tibetans, we actually look at them. If we actually end up looking at that, then this may actually further discourage us. If we actually look at the Chinese people who are suffering, we actually see how different, disparate, and broken and scattered China is.
Yeah, and I think one of the obvious realities is that the Chinese government, or China, is made up of many pieces and parts, and the way that the government rules is through support. And there's this concept with Gene Sharp and looking at sort of struggles for rights and freedom, that the government, the authoritarian regime, the dictatorship, it is not just one piece. There are many pieces, and in fact there are pillars of support, pillars that hold up the government. And those pillars are everything from the bureaucracy to the army to the police to the media. There are many pillars that make up the support that keeps the regime in power. And actually, if you look at China in this way and you say, now there's the Chinese Communist Party in power, and who and what is holding it up, and you examine the pillars, you begin to see weaknesses, you begin to see cracks. We can see where there are disagreements between one pillar and another pillar. We can see already that the media in China is beginning to challenge the party line in a way like never seen before. We can see where, a crackdown by the, Xi Jinping and the top power elites on other members of their own party, or whether it's Bo Xilai or Zhou Yangkang. I mean, there are obvious cracks in the pillars that are holding up the Chinese Communist Party. There are obvious differences and differences of opinion, and all of these, there is no question the Chinese Communist Party has done an incredible job until now of ruling by consensus and sort of keeping things calm and purging those who disagree. But there are so many forces at play in China, environmental, social, political, economic, that are extremely challenging. And then you have the Communist Party with these cracks in the pillars and these pieces that we can see that are changing. That means there's the scope for change, the possibility of change. It's huge, and in fact it's probably coming faster than we can even prepare.
Yeah, that reminds me of one of the Chinese scholars, Min Pei, who's studying the various elements of the Chinese Empire, and what he has said about how, like all the other authoritarian dictatorships that have met their end, none of the authoritarian dictatorships have survived beyond their 70th or 75th year, and China is coming up against that clock, and he talks about how in China today, in spite of what they're producing as news, inside actually all the most wealthy and powerful Chinese leaders or the business leaders, CEOs, where are they investing their money? Where are they sending and putting their money? Where are they sending their kids? And they're all there's a huge capital flight from China, and that's one of the best indicators of where China is, because that's the insiders who are all investing abroad, which means they know what's going to happen to China soon. And in that sense, even if you look at the pollution, like all the problems that they're having, but one thing that stands out among all these various issues is the environmental disaster that's looming in this empire. And like if we were in China today, like we would be having to wear masks in order to speak like this. So I think it's really all the signs of being on the verge of decline and collapse, and like all these signs are there. The only thing is the Chinese government has been quite skillful at selling this version of China as the economic powerhouse and all that. We just shouldn't buy that story.
One of the indicators is also that the number of larger corporate companies in China are already shifting out of China in phases. And people are saying, analysts are saying, in the next 15 to 20 years, they would have then shifted their industries to other countries like India, Brazil, Mexico, Vietnam, and Burma. So this is already an indication where China is headed towards. Therefore, it's likely in the next 10 years that China is going to be much more belligerent. They are going to have much more hostility with other trading partners. At the same time, they're going to be practicing much more oppression within China and occupied countries like Tibet, East Turkestan, and southern Mongolia. But if you look at what we are doing, the Tibetan struggle is led and is mostly held by the Tibetan culture. We know ourselves what we have. What we have is the Tibetan culture, and therefore, when we hold on to our own culture, practice this, maintain the non-violent, resistant movement inside Tibet and also from outside, if what we are able to do. China stands, we have to outlive this, completely dictatorial leaders and the corrupt practice inside. We are going to outlive them.
Yeah, and I think that in no way are we saying that, China's going to collapse tomorrow and then Tibet becomes free and it's just one equals the other. I think for us, the key is that we have to understand and believe that the Chinese empire, like all other empires throughout history, will see its day, will see its end, especially because of the issues that are, so rampant inside. And so the question for us becomes, not a question of China's so big and strong and all-powerful and all-knowing and we don't stand a chance, so what little scraps can we get? But the question becomes, how can we build and sustain our movement and our people in such a way that, and how can we, study and practice and improve our campaigns and our strategies so that we are in the best possible position. Tibetans are in the best possible position to seize upon the opportunities that will certainly come to push for more rights and ultimate freedom inside Tibet. I mean, that has to be the key for us, and a guiding light for me is that everything changes, and China too, and certainly will change, and that it's just not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and then it becomes the key question, how can we be ready?